Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tackling Sport podcast. It's Daniel Hussey here and continuing our series on one-to-one interviews. I'm delighted to welcome Alan Daly from the Donard Glen Wicklow Intermediate Champions. Alan, welcome to the podcast. How are we?
Thanks very much, Daniel. Thanks for having me on. My pleasure.
No worries, Alan. Do you want to say that was some buzz winning the Intermediate Champions, or even hear me say you're the Wicklow Intermediate Champions and be playing senior this year?
Yeah, to be honest, it took quite a long time to actually process it. Even I suppose the week of it, after, was it still hadn't really hit. But then you just, I suppose you just talk to all the locals then for the weeks after, and you're, I think, closer to all your teammates than you would have been before. And I suppose you just see what it means to the local community. And then I think it just starts hitting you, how big a deal it was, and then to, I suppose, know that, you're playing against I suppose, Wicklow GA Giants or Ratnew, Wicklow Town, Baltinglass and all these, it's for real. It did happen,
And was it a real come up against the town club in the final kind of thing, or what was that like in terms of I would obviously be
No.
Dublin now, so I wouldn't know the ins and outs of Wicklow club football.
Oh yeah, no, you're grand. No, it was actually against a team from a community very much like ours.
Oh wow.
Kilkenny GA is their name, and basically they're so like us, real low population, very rural. The GA club is near the heart and soul of the place. You know what I mean. A good mixture of, say, youth and experience. I find with sort of maybe the more urban teams, unless you're absolutely top quality, the team is mainly saying 20, say mid-20s to sort of early 30s, whereas you find in a lot of rural clubs like ourselves in Kilkenny, you could have lads who are 17 just out of minor, and then you could have lads who are late 30s, but I think it brings more beauty to it, and more purity to it and tradition. So I think it was I'd say a great final for the purists,
Yeah, two good clubs in there. That's brilliant, Adam. Well, listen, I want you to take us back a little bit and maybe start off with, I suppose, growing up with GA and how important that was, and maybe we can continue on from there.
Yeah, no bother, Daniel. So I suppose, GA has been a big, massive part of my, I suppose, my upbringing and even my family. My mom is from Kilkenny, from Kilkenny City, and her father, so my grandfather, has an All-Ireland medal actually with Kilkenny as a sub-keeper. So now I don't know if I ever took up the hurling side as well, but I think I fell in my father's side on that. Now he wouldn't have been massive, he's massive into the football, but he wouldn't have really been renowned for playing it, but my brother would be Brendan Daly. So he's been a fullback for Wicklow before, right, all the way from minor through under 21 and senior. He's even played in Croke Park, so I had a lot to live up to in my time, and all my cousins played GA as well and would have been quite good. So I suppose there was a lot of pressure on me from an early age, but I was lucky anyway. I absolutely loved it. And it was always a sport I knew I was going to, play for as long as the body would allow me, basically, so would have basically playing for as long as I remember, with schools and the GAA club and stuff like that, and a few development squads with county. Unfortunately, county career, really, I didn't get out of it what I wanted. I was obviously hoping for the same fate as my brother, obviously in a completely opposite position, I always would have been, even from growing up, it was my aim to be the top scorer every time. Give me the ball, I'll do all the scoring, basically. And I suppose it worked well that, growing up with my brother, he was the back. He always wanted to work on his defending. So I suppose it just worked out well that I happened to be a forward, So growing up then, as regards me, I suppose, underage in football, I think it was actually towards the end of underage where I really would have started winning stuff. Like, I think it was like towards under 14. I think it was where I actually won a medal with hurling. Now, it was the Wicklow Sea Shield final. I don't think you can get much lower, to be honest with you. But
It's still a medal, though.
that's I still have the trophy at home. And then after that, really, it was 2010. Then when I was playing my first year minor with we would have had an amalgamation of Donard, Glen, and our I suppose parish rivals almost, Dunlavin, to have St. Nicholas. Like,
Yeah, I just want to
so,
ask on this because Owen was telling me about this. There must have been it must be tough to playing against your rivals to suddenly becoming part of the same team in the amalgamation.
I suppose initially, yeah, like I would have started playing with St. Nick's really when I was around 8 or 9. So I would have started with under 10s. And initially, yeah, you would have been like, why am I playing with these lads? But I suppose, I went from under 8s all the way up to minor. God, I surely had to come to a stage where I started liking them.
Yeah.
But no, as soon like we grew, like I started in, obviously, I got to know these lads an awful lot more. Would have obviously got out to discos with them and stuff like that. And, no, I actually wouldn't mind. Like, we were always growing up told, oh, these lads are the local rivals. But then eventually, like, you actually just start liking them. And then, of course, that like in 2010, we won a minor B championship. So that was we were delighted with that, like, And then the next year, then we played in the minor A, and we wouldn't have been really. We would have thought in like ourselves, like in the camp, we've a great chance to win the minor A. But outside our camp, I'd say people are thinking either one of the big clubs, Greystones, Baltinglass, Ratnew, they're the teams to look out for. But no, we pretty much walked the group stage, I remember, and absolutely scraped through a semi-final, and then we won a humdinger of a final, and it was brilliant. Like, now I wouldn't mind it. And like to win a minor championship, and then that was pretty much the last game we ever played with them lads from the 11, like, but we've memories going back and for life, and it's amazing to think now, like, God, it's 10 years since we won that. Like, it's absolutely nuts how time flies. But yeah, and then ever since then, we've been playing for Donard, Glen then. So I came up and onto the adult team, and we were senior. And of course, then in my first year, where I would have been actually starting for them, we got relegated down to intermediate, and it was just horrible. And yeah, it took us, like, that was 2012, and it took us all the way till now to actually to to get the holy grail, I suppose, and as regards intermediate and come up to senior. So yeah, be interesting to see how it goes now in 2021, whenever it starts.
And then during all that, was where you were kind of on you mentioned development squads for Wicklow. How did your Wicklow career go on from then, between say the ages of 17, 18 to now?
I suppose it's been hit and miss, really. Like, I mean, I tried for county minor, and unfortunately I didn't make the final cut of the squad. Felt very hard done by, especially the year after that I had, where we won the minor A. Like, but I just thought to myself, look, I was convinced enough times that many county senior stars had the same story, like that, where they mightn't have been picked for county minor. Like, I suppose nowadays you've obviously, everyone knows of Brian Fenton, like, looking at potential player of the year, and he didn't make his county minor panel as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's what I always tried to tell myself. Obviously, I wouldn't have known that back then, but I thought to myself, look, and just keep working and hopefully fill out, and we'll make squads in the future. Under 21, I suppose the big highlight that was coming on with 5 minutes to go in championship against Laois in my last year. Like, I remember that was a team with Paul Kingston and Evan O'Carroll and Graham Brody. But look, we lost that game by a point. I remember it was heartbreaking. But even looking back at that, and then in 2016, myself and Owen Kelly and one of the other boys, Conor Healy, were called up to county senior. But I suppose I had a similar story of own. It never really got further than just training or like I suppose just heading away with the match day squad as to actually making it. Like, unfortunately, I think it was probably through I can only speak for myself anyway, but probably just I didn't probably put in the effort needed. Like, I always, with club, it's never really been, I've never had to work too hard to start, but obviously I needed that bit of cop on, I suppose, in county, and it never really worked out for me. But then I suppose after that, like, I dropped myself off then at the end of 2016 because I started my physio masters. But the next big opportunity then, I suppose, I kept on with the club, but then Underdogs 2019. And that was a great lesson for me, like, under the tutorship of Mickey Ned O'Sullivan, Kevin Cassidy, and Valerie Mulcahy, like, and a few times Gary Sykes would have come in. And I tell you, like, if you could just keep their nuggets of information in a jar, it would be absolutely priceless. Like, you know what I mean? Like Mickey Ned, like, he never a man to roar at you, just a man to take you over to the side and just tell you need to do this more. And like, he was absolutely brilliant. But I think, because it was all televised and stuff like that, and it was all in front of camera, you couldn't exactly be seen to not work hard. So we had everything put in place for us. And I think, the biggest thing I got out of that, now, obviously, coming on against Mayo to score a point, it was massive. Like, I'll never live that down at all. And like, I'll always remember it. But like, it really did teach me that, like, to get on ahead of, like, a lot of the lads now on the bench would have been much better than me, but I absolutely worked my socks off, probably for the first time ever. Like, I was hitting the gym, I was doing sprints, I was looking after my nutrition and stuff, like, the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And I think that really served me well going forward. Then I got called up to county then at the end of 2019. And I suppose, this is under Davy. Now, Davy's obviously just started over Wicklow, and he's after doing an amazing job with them only in his first year. Unfortunately, like, I was absolutely flying fit. I remember being like one of the top in the fitness tests and all that. And then, of course, like, one of my first sessions back, I tore ligaments in my ankle. Just a pretty innocuous. Went to put my foot down, rolled over my ankle, and busted ligaments in it. And county football, what really it can be, especially now, it's very cutthroat. Like, it's very results based and win based. Managers are under a lot of pressure from, I suppose, a lot of sides, media, and the fan bases and stuff like that. So obviously, they want the best and they want their players ready. Like, none of this people just standing on the sidelines with injuries. Like, that doesn't happen at county. So I had to rush myself back, picked up subsequent injuries, tried playing while I was injured, and of course, playing with injuries, like, I tried to play with one in a challenge game, and I had probably the worst game of my life. I remember I had 3 shots from the 14 in front of the goal, and I missed every one of them, and was given a deserved bollock in a half time, and I was taken off, like, and after that, like, I haven't had a county career since then, because I suppose of deeper things that were going on with me at the time, like a lot of things that were eating away at me, like.
It must have been tough for that to happen, probably in the midst of when you were having stuff going on off the pitch as well.
Oh yeah, like, I suppose that was just the tip of the iceberg, really, Dan. I suppose it was something that I didn't know was as serious at the time. Like, I suppose in the past, I would have had a lot of stuff growing up, like, as in bullying in secondary school. Like, I was a victim of that, and I suppose alcohol abuse when I was young as well. Like, if I was going on a night, I know we would have, like, we've all had our nights out where we've had one too many, but they were happening on a regular occurrence for me. Like, it was nearly a surprise if I was still standing up after nights out, like, as opposed to needing help to get home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, and this would have been all the way through, say, college years and stuff like that. Um, and then I suppose, yeah, it was coming towards the end of 2019 where I don't know what it was. Like, I think it was getting to, like, you know, being the age of 25, 26. And I think it's an age where you start realizing that, like, you know, I suppose when you're 18, 19, 20, you have all these mad circles of friends. Like, you know, like you just meet people a night out and you're hugging them and you're, you know, messaging them and all this, like, and you feel like you have about 50, 60 friends. But then if it's like, I got to 25 and 26 and I remember heading on nights out and somehow ended up on my own. And I was like, what's going on? And I was sort of like, I was losing friends, like I think that really hit me hard, like, and then, like, I suppose I felt really, so I suppose for my age, I wasn't a very independent person either. I suppose me growing up with autism, you know, I had that diagnosis when I was 10. The association between that and a lot of mental health issues like anxiety and depression and stuff like that, there's a real strong relationship between them. And obviously, not being as independent as I want to be, like, I suppose my independent skills were very behind for my age. So I think I was always worried about that, like, as in, you know, oh my God, I feel still financially dependent on my parents and stuff like that, and still drinking like I'm 18 when I'm 26. And then obviously the pressure of county football, where it's such a high thing. I remember I wasn't giving my all to my relationship with my girlfriend Gillian, and I think a lot of things were eating away at me. And that football match, like, I think it can just take a small thing to tip you over the edge. And I remember that football match, that challenge match against Kildare, just tipped me over the edge, where I remember driving home from it. And basically, um, I just remember feeling the lowest I've ever been. You know, basically, I shouldn't have been driving the car home, because I was near fit, like, steering it off my lane into a ditch or into a lorry or something like that. It was scary. But yeah, it was at that time, I suppose, I went out for a few pints that night, came back home, and I realized, nah, Alan, you're not getting through this on your own. Like, you know what I mean?
I guess, I suppose it's, you know, that trigger is, it's sometimes it can be anything really, and that probably night is led on to, and you're saying you didn't feel yourself, I guess, and it was just kind of getting worse and worse.
Yeah, like, I suppose, like, it's one of them, like, I would have had to go to counselling in the past, but I always thought, nah, no, it's like, I'm too happy, like, to be a person that's having these problems. Like, I just thought, look, this is something that everyone goes through. But I think just a lot of things manifested into one big explosion then, you know, last, or December 2019, on the 29th. And I just remember, yeah, sitting at home, absolutely just as flat as I've ever been. And like, I just thought to myself, it was like, there was nearly two options. Like, it was either I just be done with life forever, and, you know, really, will I be missed? Or there was some part of me, though, that fought it, thank God, and said, I don't know, you need to, I think there could be another way. And I managed to look at my phone and think, ring Gillian. Now, Gillian would be a sort of an early bird, like, as in, like, she get up early and she go to sleep early. And I don't know what sort of sign or divine intervention made her wake up at about 1 o'clock for some reason. And then just before she went back to sleep, saw that her phone was ringing. And obviously it was me. And, you know, to ring her and say, like to ring her and tell her what I told her, like I suppose it's an absolute worst fear for a girlfriend. Like, you know, I'm sure she was thinking, did I do something wrong? Why didn't I see it and stuff like that? But to tell her, like, I just felt like ending my life there. Like, she was so calm though. Like, she was able to say, Alan, look, you need to you need to see a doctor like as soon as they open up tomorrow, and you need an intervention, like, because I think you haven't been right for a while, but I didn't think it was this bad. And from then on, I have to say, like, that was the lowest. But from then on, I think it's just been an absolute slow rise
Mm.
to where I am now, I suppose. Like, you know what I mean?
It took a lot, I'd say, and it was probably a brave thing on your end to call Gillian at that time, you know, because
Mm.
it was definitely the brave option. You know, instead of hiding away, you decided to call her.
Yeah, that was it. Like, I suppose I felt at the time, I suppose with me, like the way I am in my family, like I'm 26. The next family members up from me are, oh, I'm 27 now, actually. Sorry.
No, I do. I'm similar age.
um,
I know. I get mixed up as well.
yeah, no, I'm 27, but at the time I was 26. But say my brothers and sisters would be in their 40s, like, and then my mum and dad are in their 70s. There's quite an age gap there, and
Mm.
I suppose I felt it very tough to come out to them because, especially like I'm living here with my mum and dad who are in their 70s. They're both the oldest in their families. Now, obviously, them growing up in like in the 50s and the 60s, like, God, I'd say mental health wouldn't have been talked about, and especially with them being the oldest of very big families, they would have been nearly given an extra parental role, like, you know, and they would have just had to get up and get on with it. And I suppose that's something that you know, they would have had to grow up with, and then they never would have had to come across these problems of like talking about mental health. It would have been just, look, you're fine, get up and get on with it. So that's why I suppose there was a reluctance from my end to chat to them about it. Now, I couldn't have been more wrong, because eventually when I did say it to them after saying it to Gillian, they were absolutely incredible. Like, you know, like mom, of course, her youngest boy, she never would have wanted it, like, to have to talk about it. And especially like dad, a man's man, like, you know, pure alpha male, for him to have a chat with me about that sort of thing, like, it was just insane, like how I just took them for granted, like, but they were amazing, and my siblings were amazing, my friends were nothing short of remarkable. Like, you know, my best friend, my cousin, at the time he'd only come back from holidays, so he wasn't insured to drive a car yet, but he got his insurance switched over to his dad's car and drove up to Nace Hospital to see me. Like, you know, they're the things you don't forget, like, you know what I mean? You know, you just know you might have rows with your family, but when shit hits the fan, you know, they've got your back. And
Mm.
that was a big thing I learned at that time. Like, you know, that was like, where did I think I was ever alone when I had these people here all along? Like, you know.
That's amazing. And you said like slow rise from there. So I suppose since the Nace Hospital, you were obviously at some point discharged. How did that work? And then how have you kind of gone on that slow rise? Because like you said, it was probably slow, but you're getting there.
So I suppose initially it was staying off alcohol for a while, you know, because that was the big trigger. But then the senior psychologist who was talking, or psychiatrist who was talking to me in the hospital, recommended a few things. So he said, first of all, to go and go about some online training, like, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy. But I found now my learning style, it just did not take to having to learn stuff online. You know,
Mm.
I just get bored all of a sudden. So I said, no, I need to talk to someone, like, and actually engage in conversation with them. So I went to Oris. So Oris, basically, they're an alcohol and drug addiction centre in Newbridge in Kildare. And I went there, and they use the same thing of like cognitive behavioral therapy, but they use it obviously to help with helping people with their addictions. Now, it wasn't like AA where it was like, you sit down, I'm going to tell you how to fix your problem. It was guiding me like to help myself with the problem, like, you know. And I'd said from the start, look, it's not as if I don't want to drink alcohol ever, because I love drinking. You know, I love a good pint, like, you know, and like
Mm.
it wasn't as if I never knew how to just sit back and enjoy a pint of Guinness, like. And that's just what I wanted to say to them. It was, look, I just want to learn how to just actually enjoy my drink and
Balance it.
have me, yeah, balance it, have me in control of it as opposed to having it control me, which is probably what it was like beforehand. So that was massive. You know, they were absolutely brilliant to me, like, and they really just made every emotional thing I was going through, they just made it more logical and made me think, like, Alan, like, I could see what you're thinking, like, getting absolutely slaughtered on a night out is a short-term gain because you're forgetting all your problems. You're not worried. You're just living in the moment. The problem is you're waking up the next morning, you're absolutely, you know, nearly dead to the world. You're a few hundred, like, you're minus 200 quid and some nights, you know, you're
Mm.
wrote off for the week because you're over 25.
Yeah.
So I was, you know, I had to think then, you know, of balancing the short term gains with the long term consequences. And I think since I've thought about that, as in, instead of getting slaughtered of a Saturday night, go out, have me 4 or 5 pints, wake up the next morning, you've only spent 20 quid, you've still a load of energy to go out, exercise, cook, and you're still okay for the week, you know. And then instead of like spending an extra 80 or 90 quid, you can spend that on, like, I don't know, clothes, or, you know, a nice jersey you saw on O'Neill's, or like a football or something like that, like, or something meaningful, a present for the girlfriend, like, you know. And like, since I started doing that, like, oh my God, it's opened me up to a whole new thing, like, you know what I mean? Um, you know, missing house parties to be able to cook a dinner, like a 3 course meal for me mum for Mother's Day, like, you
Brilliant.
can't beat that, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's something like that I never would have done years ago, but then I just sat back and did it. It was like, that was, that felt much better, you know what I mean? So I suppose that sort of thing, it was just, um I suppose that really did help. um
It's those small things that
you
you
know,
thought you didn't enjoy, or you thought you wouldn't enjoy, like that, for example, cooking that 3 course meal. But there's a
mm,
different sort of buzz from that, isn't there? Or different, do you know what I mean?
yeah, well, it's giving back to the people
Yeah.
who've helped, like, you know. I suppose, like, I suppose, uh pre-admission to NACE, like, I never would have thought like that. It would have been always like, you know, man, drop me to the quickest house party, like, or drop me to the house party fast, like, you know, I need to go now, like. Whereas no, I felt, no, I need to start showing them appreciation, like, you know, because they put me through, well, they got me through the first 25, 26 years of my life, so I need to obviously get them back, you know, and start helping them out a bit. So no, that was absolutely massive for me. And then, like, of course, 2020, like, was a funny year to try and recover, like, because of COVID, like, but it probably did help me more, to be honest with you, because I
Yeah.
suppose it reduced all the pubs being open and all the house parties going on, like, and it led me to concentrating on, you know, I suppose, building more of a relationship with my family and staying as fit as I can, like.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about lockdown and how that's going, or how that was for you during recovery. But like you said, I suppose you been able to have that time off. I'd say March, April, and with the family to kind of work on those relationships, and also I guess football coming back into the equation, or when there was light at the end of the tunnel with football. Was it May or June that football came back?
Yeah, I think it was about June time. Yeah, I remember it was grand because pretty much, I think from April on, the weather was just amazing, like. And I was able to actually grab equipment from the gym, the club gym we have, and actually leave them outside for most of the time because the weather was that good. I was able to do all my workouts outside. I was able to obviously run on the roads and stuff like that, like bring a football and work on my skills at home. And of course, because I wasn't going on nights out. I was saving up money as well, like, so a lot, like, lockdown was nearly my friend, I have to say, because I learned a lot of lessons from it. Like a lot of people say how bad of a year 2020 was. Because I could probably look back and it was like one of the most, maybe not enjoyable, but one of the most significant years of my life. Like, that's helped
Mm.
me ground myself and I suppose become that bit more independent and, just have a better outlook on life, really.
Yeah, like you said, 2020 for a lot of people wasn't a great year, but for you it was probably exactly what you needed at the right time. And to tell us how, like, building up to that football then and that intermediate championship, because while you're kind of developing off the pitch, on the pitch, it started going well. And I suppose you had a clear goal when you guys went in, was to win the intermediate championship, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. That was the goal. It was like, win the intermediate championship and that's it. Like, so basically, yeah, like I remember, like because of all the work I was doing during lockdown, I came back into training flying. Like I was absolutely motoring. I remember we played a challenge match. I was playing quite well, and well, we probably only had a few training sessions and one challenge match before we went into the start championship. And I remember, like, we'd 6 championship matches. And I remember the first one we won by 5, which gave us a great confidence boost. And personally, myself getting 6 points, like, I was absolutely flying it. Second match, then I remember we played so that first match against Anacurra. Second match then was Kilmac. So that was against, at the time, the championship favourites. And I remember we were playing brilliant in that match. We were 5 points up with 4 points up with 5 minutes to go. We conceded 2 goals and lost, but um, that I wouldn't mind. That match was probably the biggest learning curve for us because we were able to, like, that was probably a pivotal point in our year because we always knew we were a good team, but we never, I don't think we had that bit of belief that we could actually go somewhere. But I think that match taught us, Jesus, that if we just shut up shop for the last 5 minutes, we would have won.
Mm.
But it definitely carried us on. Third match then, we beat Ballymanus by a point in an absolute humdinger. That's the match. I don't know if Owen told you his father became went viral.
No, he never mentioned it to me. I've had 2 chats with him on this
Oh,
podcast, and he never mentioned that to me. Go on, and you
of
can tell it
course he
though.
never. Oh God, of course he never mentioned it. Oh God Almighty, yeah, no, Pro Loan, he won't thank me for this now at all. But Pro Loan got involved in a bit of handbags anyway, and of course the whole sideline ran on anyway to help his father being one of them who ended up jumping into who was the first one on and literally jumped into the big schmozzle anyway. So oh, Janie, Mag, it needs to be seen to be funnier. Like,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's hard to describe it, but
I go down injured. My first thought is, I hope my dad doesn't run on the pitch now and starts banging the head off the lad. It's just done it. It's my battle.
that's it. But I suppose that'll always be it. Like, he's once your
Yeah.
protector, always your protector, sort of a job. But that was a sort of, not that there was schmozzles every time, but it was definitely a physical match anyway. You were walking off afterwards sore. We won that anyway, and that was a big psychological win, as even just the result on the day, like, because we were able to scrap a win, like, we won the quarter final by 6 points. I remember that was a great that was a great match. Semi final then, we won that by a point, and that was a match where I was going into on form. I kicked 6 points there in the previous match, the quarter final. I kicked 2 points in the first half of the semi final, and then I ended up tearing my Achilles in the halfway through the semi final. And I was absolutely, like, in tears that weekend, like, because I thought we have to get into a county final and I won't be able to play. But luckily, obviously, like, doing my undergrad in sports science and a master's in physio, you get to know contacts. So I managed to get in touch with a mate of mine, Luke Murray, he's from Williamstown in Galway, but he's over in England now. He's had
Mm.
experience with Arsenal and London Irish, and got in touch with him and said, "Here, man, don't need an opinion as whether I'm going to play the final. I just need you to try and get me as strong as possibly can, just to even get a kick in the final." So he managed to give me a program anyway, and it was very touch and go even during the week. Got another opinion from a physio saying you shouldn't be playing, you should be in a boot. That sort of set me back emotionally, but I got to sort of Friday evening where I was able to do a bit of running on the pitch, and the manager said, "Look, yeah, how do you feel?" I was like, "I think I'm ready for 15 minutes at least anyway." And the manager said, "Look, we'll keep you on the bench for that time." Now, looking at training over the 2 weeks, I mean, the buzz was unbelievable. Like, it was just surreal, just to see all the green and white around. And I was emotionally, I was a bit like, Jesus, will I even play? Like, but then it came to the match, and I was actually fairly calm going in because the lads were training well. They were absolutely flying it. Like, got through the parade and all that grand. Match started, and of course, oh my God, like, to say, like, we I suppose did 9/10 of that first half perfectly, but 1/10, and the most important 10 was that we didn't score. And it
It's
wasn't for
mad.
the lack of trying. Yeah.
It's madness, isn't it? Like, not scoring in a first half or intermediate.
And like, if you heard like a team hadn't scored in a half, you'd think they were camping their own half for the game and probably only got one or two chances. We were absolutely all over Kilkenny for the first half, but we just could not kick it over the bar. It was generally like there was a net between the top two posts and it was just stopping the ball going through. We could not kick it over. And the manager then, obviously, with the state of the injury I had to do a good warm up. So with 10 minutes to go in the first half, I think we kicked our 8th or 9th wide, and the manager just said, "Alan, get on." Like, he's like, or Alan, warm up. And I warmed up anyway, and I thought, I was actually fairly relaxed because I think I wasn't worried about the match. I was just worried about, will I play or not? So I think
Yeah.
it actually took the nerves away from the actual occasion for me. So I came on then at halftime thinking, well, listen, we're only 2 points behind. Sure, God, if we get 3 points, even if I'm able to help the lads.
Yeah. So it's 2
And
0
sure,
at
no, I
halftime.
ended up 2-0 at halftime.
Like
And
a
then, of
soccer
course, the
match.
second, yeah, oh, that's it. Like, you'd have seen higher scoring soccer matches. But then the second half, like, I can't even say it's the second half of me dreams because I didn't even dream it. Like, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
dreamt it. I would have dreamt maybe, like, I don't know, standing on the edge of the square, maybe fisting one into the back of the net or something. But to say that, you know, came on, first thing it did was nail a 45 over the bar within the first 30 seconds and a half. And then, you know, after that, then one of the other lads, Liam Monaghan, there got a free. He ended up kicking 3 frees, very pressure frees. And I sort of in and around them managed to get a free myself, kick 2 frees, or sorry, kick 2 from play, one after the other, which took us up to the water break. And then, you know, even with 5 minutes to go, I think we were a point behind this, and we got another free to level it. And then when you're playing a match as well, you don't really have a concept of time either. Because I
No.
remember I got a free from around the sideline, put it on the deck and stroked it over to put us a point ahead. And then all of a sudden I heard the stadium announcer go, "Additional time." I was like, gee, I thought we'd about another 5-10 minutes left in the half. I didn't
Yeah.
realize. I thought that was almost the last kick. And thankfully we traded points then, and like one more pint each. I got the last one, and they got one. They were fisted it over, trying to go for a goal, and then the match was over. And
I'd say that was
uh,
some at the end was, considering the year you've had, you both off the pitch and then on the pitch with your injury. I'd say that final whistle was some buzzer.
yeah, like then I think like it was just an emotional roller coaster. Like after that, honestly, like just to say, I was just know how to react. To be honest with you, like
Yeah.
I was part of me just wanted to break down onto the ground. Another part of me was getting me up off the ground and running around. Like the pain that my Achilles was gone, and just to know like that, um, that I've significantly helped. Like a lot of people were trying to tell me, "Oh, Alan, you won a for them." Flattering, but I would not say that at all. Like, I just like to say that I helped bring my club to the
Mm.
first, championship title in 20 years, which was just
Wow.
absolutely brilliant. Like, and especially the year that it was, and not even just for me, but like for a lot of the lads on our team who obviously had to go through the year they've had, like a lot of the elderly people and school kids in the stands, like, might not have ever got to see their mates over the year, or like, the elderly not getting to see their family during the year, would have had to cocoon. Like my mum and dad would have had to cocoon for a good few weeks. Like for them to get out and have the year they've had, and then see the county final and see us winning it, like it's, it was indescribable, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
Daniel. I honestly, to this day, I can't actually. I might have been able to describe it right afterwards, but now I can't. Like it's actually, I'll never know how much this has meant to the communities of Donard and the Glen, really.
Yeah, it's amazing talking to you from where you were, say December 2019, almost a year ago, to where you are now. Like, talk us about, I suppose, maybe the aftermath of that win, and how have you been since, really?
Well, the aftermath, I suppose, like initial aftermath was great. Like, like it was just to lift the cup. Like, as I was co-captain with Connor, which was an absolute honor. Like, to lift the cup with him, and like just to have our names alongside some of absolute greats at the Glen, like it's absolute gold. Like, win the man of the match award, which is a bonus. Like, and then of course the celebrations, I suppose, were low key enough. We couldn't really do much, obviously, with restrictions and stuff. Like, we obviously just had to really stick to our teammates as opposed to mingling with too many people outside in the community. But we were still able to see them people. Still, like, they were still able to get congratulations off them and stuff like that, and just to tell us then what that has meant to them. It's phenomenal. Like, and then I suppose after that, yeah, like it was to win the intermediate player of the year. Then,
Oh wow.
I only got, yeah, I got that news, so that was absolutely massive. And then, yeah, that was pretty much it. But like, we've gone into lockdowns then since that final was finished. So I suppose, like, we haven't really got to come together as a squad even that much since the week after the final. Like,
It's a bit mad,
so
isn't it?
hopefully now, it is like it is mad, but I suppose, look, that's just the way life has been. Like, for a lot of people, I can't really complain too much. We've been lucky enough that we were given the chance to do it. And then, yeah, I suppose after all that, then a local photographer here, Dave Barrett, absolute gentleman of a man, the laughing man, but we get on very well despite our obvious difference in allegiances. He got on. He knew. He basically said he knew one of the people from the Irish Examiner who was looking for basically a good news story, and the Dara Conacour. Sorry, the name had just left me there, and he was looking for a good news story from COVID, and Dave had recommended me to him. So I did the article with him, basically just talking through what we're talking through, and it came up in the Irish Examiner then during my Movember. So I started Movember then in just to where basically after what I'd gone through, just to raise awareness for men's mental health and physical health, and that article then really helped with donations and stuff like that and support. Like, I ended up raising just over €1,500
Wow.
for Movember, and I have to say the absolute 100% of the thanks goes to the people who donated. Like, it was absolutely humbling, to say the least. That was absolutely massive. Um, so and then in between lockdowns, obviously being able to go down and see my girlfriend and actually, um, you know, help her with, just be there for her. Like, I suppose, like, because in 2019, I definitely wasn't being a role model as a boyfriend or anything like that, but I definitely think last year I really did improve on that. I was there for like any sort of level, really. Like, so it was just wonderful then, as 2020 came to a close, to be able to, you know, wish people a happy Christmas, and I suppose just thank them for all the support they've given me. Like, 2020, I have to say, it'll always be a year like that I'll never forget for so many reasons. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you said, it's a good news story. And you mentioned to me off air there that you're working as a physio, and even during lockdown, you're able to go up to working in the hospital, albeit at the moment it's like online stuff. Can you tell us just a little bit of some of the stuff you're doing there?
Yeah. So in 2020, I would have had, I suppose, two different. I suppose literally from the first half of 2020 was I was a physiotherapist for adults. It was basically musculoskeletal stuff, like just in a clinic.
Mm.
So I would have been doing that for the first 3 months, but then COVID hit basically, and I would have been having to do telehealth. So, like, say, physio like this, where I would have been in my office, the client would have been at their house, and I would have been basically doing physio that way. Now, I wouldn't exactly be the way physio is now, it isn't as hands on as it used to be, but still, you would need that sort of element at times.
Yeah.
And obviously, I wasn't able to do that over video, but that was what I was at for the first 6 months anyway. And then I managed to land a position in Chamber House in Tala as a pediatric physio with children aged 5 to 18 with intellectual disabilities. So stuff like autism, and then other disabilities like developmental coordination disorder, and things like that, like severe speech and language difficulties and stuff like that. Um, which is tough. I'm not going to lie, it's tough at
Mm.
times. We are, like, between lockdowns, we were able to get some service users in, and it's easily the most rewarding job I've ever done. Like, it's just amazing, like, because you're not just helping children, you're helping the parents of the children who are very, very stressed. Like, we all know the waiting lists that we have at the moment, like, so to be able to help these families really is
Mm.
absolutely, it's massive, like, and it's really heartwarming then to see, you know, how happy they are leaving sessions and stuff like that. Really bigging myself up as a physio here.
No, but it's easy to forget
Yeah,
those families of kids with special needs and stuff like that. I did a small bit of work with Enable Ireland. I know what you mean. It's people, obviously the kid, but people forget the parents and also sometimes the siblings as well. So it's great to do that bit of work. And like you said, it's probably up there with as rewarding job as you can get.
absolutely. 100%. And sure, obviously we hear it, between, yeah, as I said, the waiting lists and all the, I suppose, the unknowns with them going back to school and stuff like that. Like, I'm sure it's
Yeah.
especially with kids with autism and stuff like that. Having to, like, the unknown is probably one of the worst things, arguably one of the worst things for kids with autism. Like, because they like routine, they like order and stuff like that. Um, and I can definitely speak on that myself. But yeah, so right now is quite a challenging time for them. I can see that then in some of our sessions, and then chatting to the parents as well. Like, it's quite a stressful time for them. So I suppose that's why I suppose I can't really um, complain too much about, I suppose, my 2020 or COVID lockdowns for me, because I've been one of the lucky ones, I suppose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to take up something you said earlier about alcohol, and I know you mentioned this in your Irish Examiner interview as well, which we'll link in the description. I suppose you touched on a little bit there about Ireland's relationship with alcohol, and particularly at that young age, like you said, that you developed those issues with it. I suppose 18, 19, 20, 21 in those college years, and continue that on into adult life. Do you think as a nation we have a problem with alcohol, and how did you find your own relationship with alcohol with that as well?
It's hard for me to say whether the country has a problem with alcohol as such. Maybe at times we do. Um, you know, I suppose it's only when you go to other countries, maybe, and, like,
Mm.
say, I have a sister in France, like, and if you go over there, like, you wouldn't see like pubs as such. Like it's mainly just they drink at restaurants. Like they might have just beer or wine or whatever with dinner, and then once the meal is finished, they go home. Really, like whereas here, like the pub culture, while it's not as strong as it was decades ago, it's still a thing. Like and definitely as a youngster, I found like you know I probably just didn't have that education of the dangers of alcohol. Like um, how it affects, not even just when you're drunk, but the days after, like, um, but definitely I found like when I was 16, 17, starting out, a lot of my nights out were, you know, getting sick and stuff like that, or saying things to people that I shouldn't say. And I definitely continued into college and stuff like that. But I realized then obviously when you get to over 25 and stuff, or the older you get, really, it takes more out of you. You know, if you go on a mad one of a Saturday, you can expect it to completely floor you of a Tuesday, but then like you could be absolutely drained for the week.
Mm.
You're just tired. You're not getting your exercise in. You're not getting proper. Your diet's off. Your hydration's off. Financially, you've just spent, you know, almost half a week's wages just in one night getting drunk, so drunk that you can't even remember. Um, and that was happening to me, like, um, and of course, mentally, then obviously, especially if you can't remember what you've done, anxiety kicks in, alcohol being a depressant down, it can be very unhealthy. And I think this is just something that needs to be educated in schools, like especially post-primary school, like um right from when you're 14, 15, and or right when you're 13, I'd say, because it is something that really needs to be, like anything, done within moderation, like something maybe just to help you socialize and whatever like that. But I think definitely sometimes we can go overboard on it, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess at your age, well, I think you mentioned this in your piece as well. I think sometimes we glorify, someone, spending so much money on a night out, or someone, going that extra, having those extra few drinks. And I think sometimes we glorify that too much. And I think we all do that. And it's just
Yeah.
a kind of possibly a small bit of human nature, that kind of thing. Or I don't know, it's a hard way to describe it, but I guess that's probably an issue as well. Like, but
Yeah, I suppose that is definitely, I suppose it's definitely getting an understand, like it's not, I suppose, that people are like bad or evil for overdoing it, like, because I suppose, like, when you're a teenager, I suppose that, like, 16, 17, and you're drinking, and like you nearly, like, sometimes you feel, oh, the lad who's the most drunk is an absolute legend, or like
mm,
something like that. So that can nearly spark someone on. Or if someone's having, you know, I suppose, issues with, I don't know, socializing, or if they've been bullied, or if they're having problems at home, alcohol can be seen as a way. I found it as a way anyway of just forgetting all that. Um, you know, it gives you nearly Dutch courage, like, but again, it's doing it in moderation, really. Uh, yes, that was basically it. I always found that, like, if I had a certain amount of drinks, I was absolutely, wired. Like, where I was on the dance floor, I was really enjoying myself. Like, when I was single, I would have had no problem talking to women if I was a certain level of drunk. But like, it's again short term gains. Like, that's not where you want to be at your happiest. Like, that's not where you want
mm.
to be at your most confident talking to women or anything like that. Like,
So Alan, listen, you've been brilliant with your time. I suppose for someone out there that, has heard your story, I guess, like, take it back a year from where you were to where are you now. I suppose, would you have any, I know it's a hard thing to ask, but any kind of advice? And I suppose, how are you now yourself?
right now, like I suppose the important thing to let people know is, like, right now, well, personally with me, like, it's not as if things are perfect. Like, it's not as if I'm happy now 24/7. Like, absolutely, I have tough days.
Mm,
I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Now I do have tough days a lot. Like, especially, you know, long nights, wet, cold, dark. it can be a big struggle, absolutely, and especially for a while when I was sort of still injured after the final and stuff like that. I couldn't get out and run or do a lot of gymming or something like or stuff like that. So it was tough at times. And lockdown, I know, is some days are great, some days aren't. Like, you know, I'm
Yeah.
always just like, when am I getting this vaccine, like, and stuff. But the way I see it is, like, tough times don't last. Like, I suppose at times we all will go through tough times, you know, mentally, emotionally, physically, like, but we'll get through it, like, you know, especially with COVID, we're gonna get through it, like, you know, it will come to an end at some stage, and we'll be able to get back to some normality. But I suppose from what I learned from my experience is, don't wait till you're sitting at the edge of the bed contemplating your life to do something about it. Like, you know, talk to someone, and, you know, whether it be family, whether it be friend, or just a loved one, just don't be afraid to tell them, look, I'm not doing. I never like this expression, like, oh, I'm grand, you know, like, just, if you're not doing well, look, I'm struggling. Look, I'm not doing well, or, look, to be honest, I, I, I'm really not myself lately. Like, you know, just say it to someone, and get the help early. Like, the earlier you do it, the earlier you recognize it, the easier it'll be. Um, and never let ending your life be the option. You know, um, I'd like to think now, hopefully, that my story has proven that no matter how low you can go, that there's always a way out, and there's always a way back to the top. And I'd like to think that I have, not saying that because I did it, anyone could do it or anything like that. It's just to be like that, you know, you can't do it. Like, you know, there's proof that, you know, it always seem hard, but um we can get back to the top, and we can get back to where we want to be. Like, you know.
Absolutely, and listen, that I think that's a brilliant way to finish. But before you go, I did want you to mention to me that Trevor Giles story, with the little kid coming up to both of you, asking for one of you guys, well, for one of your autographs, but it wasn't Trevor.
Oh, yeah. So it was after the Underdogs match, and a lot of the kids and all the parents and all that came on, like, the pitch after the match. The kids basically were all looking for autographs off everyone, like, you know, because it was the likes of Stephen Cohen and Phil McDonough, and all these lads were, Matty Rowan were on the pitch for Mayo, so obviously they would have been getting their autographs, but they got ours as well. And I gave away my gloves, I think, and stuff like that. But we managed to, one of the people looking at the match was actually Trevor Giles. And I went up to him and was like, oh my God, Trevor Giles. Like, he was like, oh, Alan, how are you? I was like, how do you know? I was like, I saw your name in the program. You kicked a lovely pint there against, you know, you kicked a lovely pint and all. It was great to see. So we were chatting away just about, I was like, how are you getting on? Like, what are you doing with yourself now? And he's telling me, I think he's living in Mayo now and all that. And lo and behold, some little kid comes running up anyway. And me thinking, oh, here, geez, he's going to ask Trevor for a photo or an autograph. But no, he actually comes up to me and looks for my autograph. And I was like, this lad does not realize, like, who is standing beside me, like, you know, an All-Ireland winner, like, you know, the three coaches, like Valerie, Mickey, Ned, and Kevin, like when they heard the story, God, they were in knots laughing, like. So no, it was a great story, you know, I have to say. And so it's one for the kids and the grandkids, like, if they ever hear of Trevor Giles.
Mead legend Trevor Giles, that is. But
Yeah.
listen, Alan, you've been amazing for coming on. Thanks a mil for coming on to the show.
No, it's my pleasure. And look, I suppose the last thing I was going to say was as well, just if you know, if I suppose if it's not a family member, a friend you want to speak to, I suppose as regards to having a problem, like, there's always Samaritans, there's Pieta House, there's a Movember charity, and also if someone says to you that, you know, they have a problem, guide them towards them resources. Like, you don't have to be the one to give advice or anything like that, or words of wisdom, just to let them know that you're listening, that you're there for them, like, you know, and that you'll always be there for them is absolutely massive. Like, so yeah, that's just a finishing line I wanted to end on, I suppose.
Oh, listen, Alan, well said, absolutely. And what we'll do is we'll link some of those charities in the show description as well. For those that haven't listened, it's at Tackling Sport on social media, or you can subscribe on the bottom right if you want to hear more of these interviews. They're every Monday. But for Alan, yeah, thanks a mil for coming on, and we'll see you on Thursday.